Hi everyone. So I just thought I'd start by talking about my background a little bit. I just started here recently, but before I worked here, I worked for two different schools in Denver. One called the Logan School, that's a private school, and one called the Odyssey School, which is part of the public school system. And my job there was to add environmental ed and field work and adventure into their curriculums. And often stewardship went hand in hand with that. And then I also worked for the Women's Wilderness Institute and still work for them, so doing girls and women's climbing programs. And stewardship is always a part of the girls' courses on the last day. So adding stewardship into our climbing program is new for us here, but it's something that I've definitely worked with in the past. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about a quick intro into our program and then specifically about our plans for stewardship and how we've kind of gone through that process of starting to have kids become climbing stewards. Let's see. So YEP is the youth education program, and it was developed in 1996, and programming didn't actually start until '99. But what happened was back in the early 90s, the CMC, Colorado Mountain Club, became part of this whole American Mountaineering Center. And so all of a sudden we had this great facility where we had conference rooms and classroom availability and a library and eventually a climbing wall and the museum, which if you haven't checked out, you should go up and check that out while you're here. And so people decided that we should try and expand to working with youth since we had this great location for them to come to now. And so that was kind of the background. And our mission is that through hands-on activities, we encourage academic growth, stimulate interest in the mountains, and encourage preservation. So a little bit about who we serve. We serve over 5,000 youth per year, so it's pretty extensive. And we really try hard to work with kids from all backgrounds. So we work with a lot of private schools, we work with a lot of public schools. Plenty of kids come out here who hardly ever get to go on field trips with their schools. Scout groups, disabled youth, kids from residential treatment centers. We have a really wide range. And then we also have a big summer camp program too, so that's kind of a whole nother part of what we do. And our demographics, last year 31% of our students were ethnically diverse and 32% were part of the federal free and reduced lunch program. So we reach out a lot to schools that wouldn't normally be able to afford our programs. That's a big part of what we do. And the way that we do that is through a few different things. We get a lot of grants. We have a great employee here, Sarah, who does an awesome job of securing grants that help us a lot with our programs. And we do a lot of work with the SCFD, which, if you're not familiar with it, is the Scientific Cultural and Facilities District. So what that is a big nonprofit in Denver. And the way that it works is they take 0.1% sales tax for Denver and the surrounding counties. There's 7 counties that are a part of it, which breaks down to look like 1 cent for every $10 spent in those counties goes into this program. And they reach out, their whole goal is to just get people access to all of these great cultural facilities in Denver and scientific facilities. Because a while back in the 80s, they were starting to realize that most of the people that were getting to use our museums and the zoo and the botanic gardens and things like that were coming from surrounding counties. They weren't, or from surrounding areas, not from Denver. So their whole point was to try and fix that and make it more accessible. So we get a lot of help from them. We're a tier 2 member, which they're broken down into 3 tiers. The first tier are the big 5, which are the Botanic Gardens, the Zoo, Museum of Nature and Science, the Performing Arts Center, and the Art Museum. So they get a lot of their funding, the majority of it. And then we're tier 2, so we get quite a bit of help too. And they have 2 programs we work with. The Pathways program is essentially money, so we donate to the SCFD and then we get a certain amount back to help kids come out here. And so that's money that I can just use sort of at my discretion. If there's a school that wants to come but can't afford it, that helps pay for a portion of that program. And then there's another really cool project called the Alliance Project. And that is application-based, so schools in those 7 counties can apply. And each year they choose 1 school from each county, so 7 schools each year can participate. And if you become part of that, you're psyched because it means you basically can get any field trip you want that year out of any of these programs that are available, and they'll fully fund it. So that's a really neat program. And then finally, if we've gone through all of those pathways and we still can't get a school out here, we'll do in-kind donations of our instructor time. So I'm salaried here, my coworker Ryan is, and we'll try and find a way that we can just donate our time to get them out here. So we work pretty hard to reach as wide of an audience as we can. And then the last thing is that we have a lot of volunteers here at the CMC. We had, I checked in the last year, 171 volunteer days for the youth education program, which for me basically breaks down to almost every program we did probably had some sort of volunteer presence. And a lot of that's belaying. Before we get specifically into climbing, we already do quite a bit of stewardship education here. So those are 3 of our programs that we do that are already stewardship based. We've got one called Tomorrow's Mountains, which is all about climate change. So we incorporate the museum upstairs. And that's a lot of education about glaciers and plotting glaciers and what they used to look like and what they look like now, and looking at photographs from different years, and sort of a climate change class. And then we have one called Conserve Our Mountains, which is just working with students to teach them that conservation can happen right now in their neighborhoods. It's something that they can just do on their own. We've got different activities about how long different materials take to break down. We actually go out and do cleanups and things like that with kids. But that's like a really sort of urban-based, accessible class for kids to teach them that they can make a difference right where they are. And then service learning and stewardship, that's new. That really just started getting developed as a program last year, and so we're still figuring out exactly what that looks like and writing curriculum. But we've done some work with El Dorado Canyon and their rangers, getting kids out doing stewardship projects there. And now this year, like, our step for this fall is doing our own and running them ourselves up at Table Mountain. And then that bottom part, LNT in all of our outdoor classes. So we're constantly talking about leave no trace. Every time we eat lunch with kids outside, we do a leave no trace talk about picking up. Anytime we're at Crags, we bring trash bags with us and pick up and take it out with us to teach the kids and also to maintain awesome relationships with all the areas we work with. So now we can get specifically into our climbing program. So climbing is a huge part of what we do here. I'd say at least 50% of our classes have some sort of climbing component, whether they're doing team building and they're doing the wall as part of that day, or we're taking them outside, or we're teaching a class about the physics of climbing or biology of climbing. A lot of what we do is climbing education. And our primary climbing programs take place in the summer. And we offer a whole bunch of different climbing courses, a beginner, an intermediate, and advanced. An overnight called the Getaway, that's a week-long trip to go climbing, often to Vedavu. And then some more specific classes, like we work with a lot of scout groups who want us to take them out for a week climbing. So we've got a pretty comprehensive climbing program. It teaches you everything from how to put on your harness to multi-pitch climbing in Eldo. And so all of our climbing instructors are AMGA certified. Whenever we do multi-pitch, we hire rock guides to make sure we're just giving them the best climbing education we can. And we've got a nice little video here that was created by one of our main climbing volunteers. He works with us all the time. You'll see him in the video. And I thought that would be probably a better overview than I could just give by talking. So.
Any questions?
So, what did you do on your summer break? Wouldn't it be cool if you could say you learned how to rock climb? The Colorado Mountain Club's Youth Education Program, or YEP, offers beginning, intermediate, and advanced rock climbing summer camps for 11 to 17-year-olds. So you get a chance to hang out, so to speak, in some wild, beautiful places. The YEP staff and dedicated volunteers will teach you about the gear and how to tie the knots. And you get a lot of practice climbing, rappelling, and belaying.
YEP is a community program because we work with school groups and also in the summertime work with individuals. I think a lot of kids these days spend a lot of time hanging out at their house, playing organized sports, or even playing video games. And we try to give them an alternative to enjoy their Rocky Mountain backyard. And that's what makes me smile. That's what makes me come to work every day, is that I know that kids are getting out, doing something maybe a little bit different, and they're exploring a different way to sort of recreate in what I refer to as our Rocky Mountain backyard. It's an area that we have access to, and it's a beautiful part of our world that so few of us access on a regular basis. Rock climbing is a unique avenue to let kids both challenge themselves physically and mentally, and also work as a team. So it builds trust within groups, it gets them outside, sort of challenging themselves in a lot of different ways. And again, that's what makes me smile during the morning. So.
Hello there.
Oh my God, that's so great. I have gotten so much better. I've been able to do climbs that I wasn't able to do when I started.
We've been looking at climbs that first look hard to some people, but were like, they're easy. It's fun. I mean, granted, half of the counselors are kind of crazy, but still, it's fun. Half of them? I'm kidding.
You know, it's a lot of fun coming up here for me and seeing the kids challenge themselves, seeing them learn something about outdoor education, you know, nature, geology, weather, mountain safety, you know, all those things come into play. It's really, really nice to come up and see it all come together. See the whole program come together and see these kids just having a great day. It's just a real win-win for me to come up and do this stuff and see it pay off.
Seems like it doesn't want to switch.
Yeah. You may have to go to the
What?
You may have to go to the power. There you go.
Got it. Okay. So that's just a little bit about our programs, and then we're asking ourselves now, how do we get these climbers to develop into stewards? And so for me, I think the most important thing is to turn them into lifelong climbers if we want them to be involved in climbing stewardship, because if they're not climbers themselves, they might come out and do one program one time, but if we actually turn them into kids who are lifelong climbers, then they're going to be doing it forever and hopefully passing it on. So that's one great thing about our programs, is that they're designed to offer years of climbing development, so you can come back summer after summer and learn something new, and hopefully by the time they leave our program, they think of themselves as climbers, not kids who have just gone on this week-long climbing camp. So a lot of our participants in our climbing program have participated in all of them. They've kind of come up through the ranks year after year, and a lot of them come back now, which to me is, you know, part of the definition of stewardship, is passing that on to other people. So we have a lot of youth that come back as assistants in our climbing camps, and they just volunteer their time because they want to come share what they've learned and kind of their passion and belayers and inspiration to other youth. So I think having those kids come back, you know, a lot of them are in high school or headed off to college now, but having them come back and work with our kids in the summer is awesome, because, you know, that's so much more accessible to the kids in our camp than, you know, us 30-year-olds who are working with them. If they see that these younger kids have come up through and they really think of themselves as climbers now, it's big inspiration. So, and then the last thing I think you can do is offer opportunities to schools to do stewardship, because there's so many schools out there now that have service learning as a requirement of what they need to do. So I don't know where all of you guys are from, but being here in Colorado, I know stewardship is huge in the schools, and there's so many teachers who are looking for projects and don't know what to do with their schools, or don't have access to it. And they would probably much rather come out and do a crag cleanup or something like that than be working in the city for the day. So really reaching out and figuring out which schools have service coordinators and figuring out how to get them out there is big. So that's what my job is right now, part of it. So our future plans, to sort of finish up here, for climbing stewardship, so we've got a lot happening right now. I'm in the process of writing all of our curriculum because these classes are coming up really fast. We've been working with the Access Fund to initiate some youth stewardship on North Table Mountain. We do a lot of climbing up there with our kids, and so it just seems like a great fit. It's really close to our offices, obviously. So you guys might recognize Joe right there. This fall we went up just maybe a month ago and did a little site visit and sort of looked at the area and talked about stewardship and what we could do up there and what might work with kids to just sort of get some ideas going. And we're really hoping to offer some days where classes can come up and climb, and maybe half the group will climb and half will do stewardship, and then we'll flip so they get both the climbing and the stewardship projects. And we've already scheduled 5 this year so far. So it's only September, right? Still September. Is it October now? Early October. And we've already got 5 scheduled, so that's really great. We've got a youth adopt-a-crag coming up on October 15th. So it's family friendly. We've got all sorts of education stations happening. We've got one about leave no trace, one about erosion, and one about invasive plants. So the kids will all rotate through those. And then they'll actually break up and do stewardship projects that have to do with those things that they just learned about. So that should be great. And then we have one school that's coming up and they want to do an ongoing project throughout the year. So the first step we're going to do with them is go up there and do a site visit too, so that they can have some ownership over their project and look at the different issues up there and kind of choose what they want to do. But they're going to come twice this fall and then twice in the spring. So that's pretty cool. And then we've got an Alpine Club that's going to come after school and do a few different days with us. So actually, I think at this point we have more than 5 scheduled. And I just wanted to end with like a little bit about what I've learned and a little bit of advice. So I think the first step is really choosing a fun and engaging and satisfying project. Kids are going to really love it if they can do something where they can see a difference that day and feel like they're really making a difference right there. I once did a stewardship project with kids at the Logan School, and we went up on this rainy hike, and I thought it was going to be this miserable day, but we were digging thistle out of the ground, and that rain just made those thistle pop out so easily. It was like the most satisfying day I think I've ever seen kids have. At the end of the day, we literally had to like pull the shovels out of their hands and tell them it was time to stop. So finding something where they like can really feel like they're working and making a difference is a huge step. And then another sort of challenge for us is just figuring out how we can get kids here, so how they can afford it, which I talked about, and transportation, things like that is a big challenge for us. So finding those grants, finding different companies you can work with to help you out is big. And then for us, adding some curriculum so that the teachers have a reason to want to bring their kids out can really help. So our kids are going to learn about invasive plants and erosion and things like that. That can help just make it more desirable. And then the last thing we're kind of learning and working on right now is how to tailor it specifically to youth. So not just taking an adult stewardship program and offering it to your youth, but really working on what projects will work for them. And we're talking about training volunteers specifically who might have an interest in working with youth so that we have a safe and engaging project for them. And I think that's it. Up here I've got some of our volunteer opportunities if anyone is interested in working with the YEP program or wants to pass it on to someone, and my card. So thanks. Does anyone have any questions?
Can you share some of your experiences with working with scout groups?
Sure, yeah. We have one girls troop that we've worked with a lot. They have done 2 week-long climbing programs with us now, 2 summers ago to Vedavu, and then once last summer we did a 5-day program with them just kind of all around the Front Range to the different areas we go. Next summer we're going to backpack with them, so we've just had this sort of ongoing relationship develop. And she actually, this woman who runs this troop, really sort of fell in love with our program and has started advocating for us with the Scouts, and so it's really spreading. And they're kind of nice because they're a little bit more flexible outside of the regular school schedule, so they can do a lot of spring break trips and summer programs and things like that, and after school. What specifically do you want to know about them? Yeah, they're a great resource. Yeah, so we actually have lots of Boy Scouts who have been calling lately wanting to do those climbing programs too.
Is that part of an Eagle project or just with troop activity?
Just troop activities so far. We've sort of expanded more with the Girl Scouts. We just sort of got our foot in the door there, and we're just starting to get more work with the Boy Scouts. But with the Girl Scouts, we actually have the ability to give some of the badges out, and we're doing, I think it's called a Silver Project with one of those girls, where she's one of the girls who's come with us for the past 2 climbing camps. They don't do Eagle, they do Silver Project. Yeah, it's the equivalent. And so she's actually working on sort of a site guide to all the climbing places we visit, and directions and routes and safety considerations for all of our crags, because she really just loved climbing and wanted a project that had to do with that. So that's pretty cool. How many what?
How many service hours is the Silver Project?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look with that. Ryan, who was in the video, my coworker, is sort of our scout guy. But I could get back to you.
No, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Any other questions?
Good question. I think the climbing ages were 11 to 17. What are the stewardship program ages? Do they go?
We don't have set ages.
They don't? Okay.
No, I mean, I think you can do stewardship with anyone. You're just going to have to tailor your project.
Okay.
I could do stewardship with kindergartners where we're walking around with trash bags picking up trash, you know. It just depends on what people want to do.
Cool.
Yeah. Anything else? All right, thanks.
Thanks. Hey, y'all. Okay, so my name's Trey. Somebody asked me earlier what I was here for, or sort of what do I do, and my first response is that I'm a mom. I have 3 kids, and I'm also a gym owner, but everything comes out of, for me, my paradigm is about having the kids in our gym participate in a way that I feel like I'm contributing to them growing up into being great people in the next generation. So we've really focused a lot on the TeamWorks program. In fact, I'm incredibly grateful. I know I've told others, Amy and I used to talk all the time about how grateful I am that TeamWorks came to be, because in the years prior to TeamWorks, I struggled a whole lot more getting the volunteerism. You know, I'm always that person like, come on, you got to do this trail day. This is going to be so much fun, and yada, yada. And I really I just saw this tremendous and immediate increase in participation when TeamWorks came to play. Now, what I was missing, and what TeamWorks taught me, is that while I don't, kids love competition. They love goodies. They like rewards. And while I can speak to them and show them and involve them in stewardship so that they'll ultimately get that internal wonderful feeling about the great thing that they did, goodies matter to kids. And the TeamWorks, program said, if you do this, you could win, and you could be recognized, and your team could get some money that you could do fun things with, or cool things. So it helped me tremendously to really boost those numbers. The other thing was, I think it legitimized the volunteer service to my parents. Most of my parents in my area, I'm in a suburban, so I'm in Atlanta, but we're in a northern suburb outside of Atlanta, and these are city kids, and they're city families. A good chunk of my kids find climbing completely accidentally. You know, they go to a climbing gym for one recreational experience, they start to like it, but most of my families have no experience with this, have almost no experience being in the outdoors. Like, you're here in beautiful Colorado where everybody hikes and everybody goes outdoors, and it's marvelous, right? That's not my experience. And I was hearing you, from New Jersey, that's probably not your experience either. These are city kids and city families, and so TeamWorks also was something that I could say to my parents, hey, we're doing this project, it's part of a national organization, there's this organized competition, and I was really, I have found that to be terrific. So linking to TeamWorks when you're advocating to your parents in your team programs, I think is a great asset. So we'll just start with that. Okay. I don't know, did everyone get sort of, I've asked to have these printed handouts so that you could sort of listen and follow along and have something to take with you, and you don't have to like take a lot of notes. But the first thing about volunteer recruitment for TeamWorks is you're in this room, you love it. You can just, but sometimes as volunteers, we're a little bashful about that. We don't want to be proud, and we don't want to be seen as like holier than thou. I do volunteer work, and I'm into stewardship, you know. So we kind of, I don't think we brag, and I don't think we brag enough sometimes to infect people with our enthusiasm for doing stewardship, for doing volunteer service work. So if you can take the negative connotation about bragging out of it, the first thing that I put on here is you're a volunteer. Be proud of that. It really begins with you as that advocate for it. And so I left some spaces for later. Think about your volunteer story. What got you into volunteering? What do you love about it? What do you get out of it? And you know, left you a little space to write some notes about that. And know your story so that you can then share your story. And if you're not, I'm a talker. If you're not a talker like me, you know, you want to maybe develop that skill. Get with a really good friend and say, okay, I have to do this recruitment. I want to get my TeamWorks numbers up. Can I just talk to you about my volunteer story? And then, you know, the more you practice it, the more you're able to then be that wonderful advocate, and recruiting so much easier when it's coming from you and your heart, and you can tell it. Your friends are friends for a reason. They are your friends for a reason. They're like you, they have similar tastes and interests and priorities. Ask your friends to help out. So starting with TeamWorks, you know your parents on your team. Find that one that you just feel the most comfortable with, right? And be really clear. I need your help. Most people who've never volunteered before, or who aren't organically a part of climbing community, and climbing stewardship isn't something they've really thought about before, will help you just because they're your friend. Oh, should we be? I forgot to do this.
You can just turn it on the side. I think it's not on.
No, left and right arrow.
Look at that. Oh, that was the beginning. There you go, that's the title. No, there we go. So, anyway, all sorts of, those are my kids. I've also listed a couple of other things, and I'm not into telling you everything that's on a handout. You're grown-ups and you can read, but I do want to focus on the last two parts of the volunteer recruitment. Remember that volunteers tend to be the children of volunteers, and that works in both directions. The volunteer parents, who you can most easily begin with and grab onto, you know, hopefully have this ripple effect, but they probably volunteered, they probably saw their parents volunteering, the ones that are going to jump in most easily, and volunteerism for them is just a part of their family culture. So that's on the one side. On the other side, their kids are the volunteers of the future. And so I really want to, as a volunteer recruiter, I want to invite you to realize what you are doing every time you get that next person to volunteer is so big. You know, it really goes beyond just doing this trail day. Kids, when they volunteer, grow up to be adults who volunteer also. And so, you know, really embrace that, and know what great stuff you're doing for now and for later. Okay, practically speaking, the brass tacks, hold on. That's the tell that you're a volunteer, infect others. Okay. So the brass tacks, how do we do what we do every day to get TeamWorks to be the more successful? We, like others have said earlier in the program, plan ahead. If you head to my website, if you want to use it as a resource, we have an A-Team page, and in August before school starts, the entire first season from September through December is on our event calendar. We have a special A-Team calendar. So all of our trail days are on there. All of our outdoor climbing training sessions are on there. Parents really need a little bit of assistance to make these things happen. Trail days are a pain for them, especially if they're not climbers and they're not involved in climbing necessarily. So it's something they have to manage. And remember, every parent who has a kid on your team has 2 other kids at home who's not on your team. So they have multiple priorities to balance, and giving them as much advance planning and assistance and in the logistics of just having kids and raising them right is really, really helpful to getting them to participate and participate regularly. Let's see. If you're doing a TeamWorks event, number 1, go to the TeamWorks website page. Follow those rules through. It's very easy, and I've always had tremendous help. So it's very easy. Call them for support when you need it. Your coaches they're the role model, right? You want to make sure that your coach at the beginning of the climbing semester is talking about TeamWorks. Day 1, we're here to train and we're going to do 4x4s and this and that. And by the way, one of the most important things we're going to do together as a team is go on these trail projects. So make sure, who is coaches? If you are a coach, if you are a gym owner, if you're a volunteer in your gym, if you're just a climber at your gym, but you're in any way connected to the team, make sure that there's just conversation about it in the water. It's just happening organically all the time. We're talking about service. And that's with your adult climbers as well as your team. I don't think the culture of my gym is all that different from others. Everybody's in there for those same wonderful reasons. And so it's not, I don't only talk about TeamWorks projects with my kids. We're just talking about it. It's part of what we do. It's always what we do. The kids hear the adult climbers talking. If the one that, if Denny is climbing V8s and the kids are all like, oh my God, look at him. And then Denny's like, hey, I'll see you at the TrailWorks next weekend. That's huge for them. They want to be like you. If you're that coach and they love you and they're inspired by you, if you're that climber, just random at the gym, and you're their role model. Remember that. And so we get everybody involved in it, not just the people who are specifically working with the team. Let's see. So I've given you some things to hopefully make it easy for you, just sort of agenda items for how to plan and get it going. Use social media to publicize your events. Use social media to publicize your events. I find I am seeing an evolution in social media for the numbers that we get from what we do use. Our website still gets visits, but my website gets fewer regular visits than our Adrenaline Climbing Facebook page. So analyze, if you have the ability to look at your data, if you can get some reports on how that data is getting out and coming back. Oh, did you do that for me? What's happening? Move it there. Use it, find out where your message is being received best, and plan your actions accordingly. We find that we have to be sort of nimble on the ground. I may think that this is the best way to reach out to either my families or broaden my community. When I'm wrong, you have to adjust. So moving on to broadening your volunteer pool, and you asked specifically about scouts. That is number 1 on my list. Contact your local BSA district. These folks are there to do the same thing we're there to do. They're such an easy sell. If you can get BSA troops to come to your TeamWorks trail days, again, it's competition and kids like competitions. I don't care. But we want more people out there doing stewardship, and your kids are going to want to kind of win that TeamWorks competition. Reach out. One way to do that, and it's really very easy, is to become a BSA climbing instructor. Take a weekend course, get your little patch, your certification, and once you are in with BSA community on the local and council and district level, you develop those relationships. They just know about you casually when they get your call or your email. These folks can bring numbers. They're well organized. There's tons of them. Reach out to them. Again, it's an easy sell. They want to do the same thing we want to do. They're happy to get involved. And they're looking for service projects. They really are, that's a big component of their mandate. Get them to come to you. They'll love to. And then next I've listed for you some other places to look for volunteers to join in on your TeamWorks projects that you may or may not have thought of. Again, you were saying a lot of schools now have service requirements. Fantastic. They have to do it. Bring them out, give them they think they're doing it because they have to do it. Once they get out there, they're going to have a great time and feel that terrific sense of accomplishment. They might come back, and we'll talk about getting them back in a minute. Lots of organizations here, if you haven't thought about them, they're here for you as a resource, and you may reach out to them in your community. Okay, so why kids volunteer? This was, I had some wishful thinking about this. I wished that my kids would want to volunteer because it's the right thing to do. They're kids, and I kind of sometimes, I forgot that. And again, I'm not competitive. It didn't occur to me to give them goodies or rewards or incentives and things like that. Coach is going to require it. Parents buy into it, but really what's in it for them. And there are some intrinsic things that I've listed here, and I'm a little aware that it may feel manipulative to focus on these things, but focus on these. The kids, they admire their coach. They want to please him or her, right? The coach is in it, he's talking it up, she's talking it up. They admire their coach, they want to be like him or her. These are not bad things, they're not manipulative things, they're good things. We want our kids to want to be like the best qualities in us. And et cetera, and et cetera. But now we're going to forget all those wonderful internal reasons that we wish that kids wanted to volunteer. We're going to move on to candy. Give them candy. Kudos and awards. It takes 5 minutes to print up a paper certificate of participation. You get a little border, you get creative, have fun, somebody on your team likes to play with that. You print out certificates of appreciation. They're going to go home and stick it on the bulletin board. So small things mean a lot, and kids appreciate being recognized for what they've done. Talked about the community service aspect. There is a President's Volunteer Service Award. Getting good grades in high school is no longer a ticket to getting into a good university. They want to see volunteer service with your older teens. Talk to them about other opportunities to turn their volunteer service into something that can give them an edge, give them an advantage when they're applying to colleges. Okay, so there's one resource for you and one thing you could potentially suggest to them. Thank them. You have this, your team's been out there busting their butt. If you have a gym, it's easy, your gym owner, whatever, give them a lock-in, give them a pizza party. It doesn't have to be expensive, it doesn't have to be a big deal, but celebrate. Find some way that they want to do something that they want to celebrate for them. End of the season party, a climbing trip, an extra something, give them some a real celebration. If you should win the TeamWorks prize, we've won it 3 times now. We came in second, first, and then second last year. If you win it, there's money. I was struggling to remember what we used the money for that first year, but the second year, we used it to have Arno Ilgner come and give a seminar to our team. Phenomenal. I mean, it was such a terrific experience for them. And then last year, we used the money to buy the expensive, fancy schmancy speed climbing holds so that our kids can train on that for competitions. So if you win money, give it to your team. Let them know this is something that it's a big goodie for you. It's a great motivator. Let's see. Yeah, just keep it positive, make it fun. Okay, now, so that's kids, and then we have the families. Remember I said that part about like sell your story and invite someone, even if they've never volunteered before. Your parents of the kids on your climbing team are moms and dads, and they want their kids to get good values. Sell that person, and you know who it is, who's going to be easily on board, and you know who it is, who the parent, they almost never show, and they drop their kid off at the door, and you never see. Try to engage them on the level of, we want to be a part of helping you to raise a good child. So buy in to their parenting. This is a part of your kid's life, not just a part of your climbing team, that you don't really care about the climbing team, but your kid's into it. we're here to help you offer these great values to your kids and to live them with them. But that's the wishful thinking again. Offer them candy. When you bring them out to a trail day, give them a free lunch. Make it a good one. Right? Little things. See if you can get them to bring other people. How do you want to increase your volunteer participation? Offer free guided climbing to the non-regularly climbing folks. Not just your team kids get to climb after the thing. If you have novices, if you have siblings, and someone earlier was talking about liability waivers, and you do all the good liability stuff, and you prepare people well, but give them something on that day. They've come, they volunteered, they worked really hard. Come have a taste of what wonderful, of how this feels to do what we do. Plan other activities. Some people will not want to do it. I have overweight moms and dads who have no interest in my guided, I'll guide you for free, come play. No, they don't want that. Do something else. For younger siblings, we always bring Frisbees, we always bring balls, we play capture the flag. For parents, you want to, beforehand, identify a nice gentle hike that's really pretty, that's in that area that they might want to enjoy that afternoon. Things that can really just be fun for others. If you can give little prizes. Often when we work with the Southeastern Climbers Coalition, they'll have an SCC raffle that day. Prizes are always candy that people like to get. Give them free passes to your gym. Whatever you think is going to work. Offer incentives to those folks too. And then I've just done a listing of a few ways to, medals. Doesn't cost much. Just, at the end of the day, you're a star, Little things are, people love to get them. They feel really proud, and it's a reminder of what a great experience that they went through. Love Brandon. That picture cracks me up every time. This was a no biggie. Be awesome with very little money. It doesn't cost a lot to say thank you. We had a potluck. I don't think I might have spent $10 on the whole thing. And everybody's so jazzed at the end. Ask for swag. Try to get your local outfitters or others to provide climbing stuff. But remember that a lot of the volunteers who are coming aren't climbers necessarily. You want to broaden, right? We have Rita's Italian Ice always gives us free Italian Ice coupons. We have, trying to remember some of the others, Chick-fil-A will give us things. Don't think just swag for climbers. Think swag for everybody, and it doesn't have to be a big thing. Like those coupons I mentioned, people snap them up and they're like, oh, this is great, so happy. Your local businesses are happy. It's getting more butts in their door, and we're happy. So that's one recommendation. Very little money tools. When we're talking TeamWorks, it's not anywhere near the scale of what others were talking about earlier in this room about having to worry about really, really dangerous tools. I'm not bringing kids out on a trip where we have to use the chainsaw. But you are talking about shovels. Even shovels are dangerous. Or, pickaxes or whatever if we're breaking up hard ground. So A, be safe, obviously. But B, people have tools. Ask for them to bring them. I don't have a cache of tools that I'm bringing, and I can't remember the last time I had to rent tools. So that's another part of your planning. When you're planning what your tasks are going to be for that day, what are you going to need for that day? And then reach out and ask for it. Ask people via email, so easy. Via email, tell me, okay, so you're coming, you got a wheelbarrow? Bring it. People are happy to bring it. If they're signed on to do the work and they got the tool in their shed, they're happy to use it. Let's use it. I have that wheelbarrow. So we very, very, very rarely have I ever had to rent any tools. And then there are other easy supplies that you can get. SEC's got tarps, surgical gloves for picking up trash bags, other kinds of things. Sometimes a local climbing organization has it. A parent will say, oh, I'll bring a box of trash bags. I'll bring a box, and another person will bring a box of trash bags. That's it. That's enough. So know what you need and ask for it. You'll get it. I just can't remember the last time that we didn't have enough of those basic little supplies. I don't have to buy them. Lunch, I talked about that free lunch. It can be something shared. Pick a team parent, have your team parents sign up for dates that they're gonna do the lunch or share the lunch. Have 2 or 3 people sharing the donation of the lunch for that day. What else? Maybe there can be some offsetting. Oh, carpools. When Mike was talking about having 20 volunteers sign up but 11 show up, sneaky, but I don't just strongly recommend people carpool so that we're saving energy. That's a good thing. But if you're carpooling, if you're offering someone a ride, you're definitely coming. And that person that you've offered a ride to is definitely coming. Carpooling increases your participation level. It's just a little sneaky thing I've found over the years. So definitely encourage it. We also have, we're lucky we have a van because we do guiding and we do our summer camps, and so we have actually we have 2 vans. So we can provide transportation. Very easy thing, and if people are signed up to be in your van, they're coming. And then, little things. If I'm going to be riding with you, somewhere in the culture I know that I'm supposed to give you $10 for gas money. Volunteers get ticked off when they volunteered to do something and they're asked for something more. Like, wow, I volunteered to go up to Rocktown and I took 6 people and it cost me $60 in gas money. That was a crapper. Nobody offered. So we also, just in the course of conversation, talk about sharing those little responsibilities so nobody ends up feeling shafted. Volunteers also, they hate it when, here's just some ways to, now I'm talking about bringing them back. You got them, right? Let's keep them, and let's keep them coming back again and again. So obviously we want it to be a very positive experience, and I've talked about ways you can make it a positive experience. But in addition, keep out the negative experiences. Know that there can be some bummers, even if you've, even if it's something little, like you say, well, there'll be coffee in the morning. It can't be that the coffee guy just didn't show, and oh, sorry. It's a little thing. So if you present that something's going to be a perk or a goodie, make sure it is, because it's little. It may be intangible, but maybe it's that one little thing that they're like, oh man, I don't want to get up and go to another trail day. They didn't even have coffee last time, like they said they would. So little things like that. Let's see if did I get it all? And you can't do it all. I was realizing when I made this presentation up that there are items on my suggestions list that I probably haven't done in a few trail days. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to reach out to the schools. They have service requirements. I haven't contacted my local high schools for this one. Dang it. Okay, you can't do it all. Prioritize. Find, what did I put? 3 things on here that you get from the list of suggestions that you think, if I did these 3 things that I haven't been doing before, those are the 3 things I know I can get done and I will get done, and let's see what happens with my participation levels from doing just those few things. And you sort of add and change. So that is the presentation that I have, and I want to open it up to questions and your experiences and see what we perhaps could brainstorm together. What's working for you guys? What problems have you experienced that you'd like to overcome?
How do you get the coach to care?
Again?
How do you get the coach to
hire a new coach?
Care?
That's shameful.
You can do that.
No, I know. Right.
But
it's a good question.
We've got a lot of youth climbing teams in this area, and a lot of those are led by people who are all about sin, and and maybe the service isn't. My personal experience is that people tend to hit their service power band later in life, especially if they're a young man who's really into climbing hard.
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying.
And so, but if those are the people who are the coaches, do you have any recommendations on how maybe we were hoping when we launched the program that we would also leverage their competitive spirit. and make them want to kick other coaches' butts for their kids in yet another
arena.
Right, exactly. But that's just, that may be something that's keeping it from, clearly we can see why your team has been successful. How do we, as a program, are there things we can do to make it more effective in other places?
One, I love that question so much that I want to think about it and give you maybe an answer later by email. Really, I want to think about that. That's a terrific point. My initial response to you, though, is you're talking about that young, strong, competitive climber in his or her early 20s, probably, right? So let's put them in the category of people we need to give some candy to. Not yet having evolved the sense of stewardship for its own sake. So that might be something for Access Fund to think about, and I'm happy to do some brainstorming with y'all about how can we incentivize the coaches so that it's meaningful to the coach. Remember I talked about that paper certificate that takes 5 minutes to print out? It may not be exactly that, but ways that you can recognize the coaches and not just the team, perhaps would be a way to go. Yeah, so let's talk more about that.
Could you indirectly influence the coach by having the parents instill that kind of MO in their kids and then pass it on to the coach that way? Has that worked at all? Have you seen that? Like, because I hear what you're saying, and yeah, it's like a huge crusher mentality and win-win-win.
Right.
If the kiddos are on board with the other aspects, maybe that would transcend what the coach is going for.
In my interactions with coaches, I have noticed that they are a lot like parents in that they are motivated by what their kids get out of it. And they really do want their kids to have a good time, and they do want to feel like they are instilling their kids with a sense of stewardship. And so if you can someone tap into that, that's another way. But yeah.
Are you saying you're not, from some you are, but from many you're just not tapping into their own ethic?
We've had flashes of success, and then there's just other areas of the country that it hasn't caught on as much, and sometimes at the places where there's plenty of climbers. And so, I would like to tweak this is maybe better, as you said, we can do this discussion.
Maybe, but I love what you're saying about reaching the parents more directly. Right now, you're communicating, I guess, with coaches and owners, right?
Good point, yeah.
Perhaps you might be able to ask for access to be able to, thanks for your interest in TeamWorks, and let us help you reach out to your kids and really help you increase your participation in TeamWorks. Would it be okay if, for the single purpose of talking to your parents about TeamWorks, if we could have their email addresses and contact them directly?
Yeah, sneaky behind that is you're taking one responsibility out of the coach's hands, and they have less to worry about. So maybe that's one way to do it. I don't know. Just
so great. Anybody else have any ideas on that? So great.
I don't know how much the Access Fund is associated with USAC, but if it's even so about USAC.
It is.
It is.
It's still USAC. Mm-hmm.
I coached a team for a while, I've been at it for a few years, but I know that teams, the kids compete and they get, their ranking on the room. But as a team, like for example, a team, you get points based on how many kids you have competing in the national competition and how many if your kids compete in the speed side of things, your team earns those points. And those points don't necessarily mean as much to the kids, but it definitely means something.
To the coaches, it means something. It doesn't mean anything to the kids, I'll tell you.
You can incorporate a separate system with the Access Fund.
an active scoring.
Your team are earning points.
Yeah.
Although you really are.
That's kind of cool.
That would be an incentive for the coaches.
That's cool.
Right now, the gym is getting recognized. Boy, were we excited when we were in Dead Point magazine. We got a full page article. Cool, I got a big kudo for that. But my coach didn't particularly, actually it was me at the time, I was coaching at the time. That's great, that's a terrific idea. So when you're going to recognize the participation, recognize that coach who day to day has to be the leader of this, has to be the driver of this, rather than the gym being here and the coach being sort of buried in the middle of it in terms of recognition. Give that person the recognition. Great idea. Anyone else? So any other sort of experiences that were awesome that you want to share with others, or problems you've had that you want help with? Or I realized belatedly I didn't exactly get everybody's sort of, why are you even in this room? Would you come to me to ask? What were you hoping to get out of this? I should have done that in the first place. So is there anything you were hoping to get out of this meeting that you haven't yet, or that you were wishing for, or you might still be curious about? You said you work a lot with the Scouts.
Yeah. Maybe it's just me, but I have no idea what TeamWorks is.
Oh my heavens.
No idea what it is.
I
I
should.
have a sense now to listen to everybody, but I mean, if I was never here to like listen to everybody talk about their team and this team, you know.
I'm so glad you said that.
What the hell, where's she going?
So let me back up.
Why does this pertain to the Access Fund?
TeamWorks is a project of the Access Fund that is a nationwide competition where teams are given points for the number of participation hours that they do, hours of involvement in stewardship projects. And the big number of points you get at the end of the season, whatever that is, are tallied up. Whoever has the most points wins the competition. REI is a sponsor. REI is a sponsor. They like to hear that. And you know, they give a big cash prize, and the top 3 teams all get cash prizes for doing this stewardship work. So there's a terrific incentive to it. Points are given in 2 ways. I'm not sure if it's going to be exactly the same this year. Traditionally, points have been given if you are a team who organizes a trail cleanup. You get 1 point for every service hour for everyone who participates in your cleanup. So that's your team, the people your team or gym brings, and anyone else who comes. You get points for them.
Now, you keep on tying it back to the gym. Does this have to do with the gym climbing?
It has to do with teams, yes. Youth climbing teams are able to participate in this competition. Is it broader than that? Could a troop participate?
Trying to make it broader. We're working on that. Right now, it's just teams.
But the teams could be, I mean, it just, in your case, you
Climbing
just
teams.
have to use your gym to organize a team.
No, this is climbing teams that are affiliated with gyms.
Right.
The vision was, you know,
Yeah, because as a track climber, I can care less about gym.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, you're-
And that's why
Right.
probably not, there's a disconnect.
So yes, it's very gym.
Was that? Yeah, I'm not talking about, that's
Right,
that's
right.
That's all right.
Yes, so it is gym climbing team based,
Okay.
primarily or exclusively at this point,
And
exclusively?
as soon as you said Arno's name, I made the connection, because he does a lot of his, you know, his falling commitment courses.
That's what we had the kids take, that was
Yeah.
their prize. So now, again, I am a BSA instructor and I love working with those Scouts as well. Never occurred to me, but maybe we think about broadening it that way. So the one way,
You get cash prizes out of it because it's a good way to fundraise.
it's not a ton of cash, but it was $1,000. I mean, it's for top team, and then goes down from
Is
there.
it nationwide though, or is it regional?
Nationwide. Nationwide.
Which is another thing we might be tweaking.
Ah, okay, cool. So anyway, so to clarify and make sure you understand the basics. So if you organize a trail day, you get points for everybody. If you attend someone else's trail day, you get points for the volunteer people that you bring. So you get service hours for the people you bring, but not for everyone. So it also is meant to encourage you to organize one, right? I mean, you're doing a whole lot more work to organize one, but it encourages you to. You get more points that way toward the ultimate competition. Now, Amy and I, time check, out of time?
another minute or two.
Minute. Amy and I did talk about this notion of competition among gyms that are local to one another. We found a glitch. The glitch in the system is that while, I mean, we won it because we went to everybody's trail days, right? But there are teams that feel it's a disincentive to go to my trail day because I organized it and I'm going to get their point. I'm going to get points for them too. They're going to get points for the 10 people they bring, but I'm going to get 100 points because I'm getting points for everybody. So they don't want to give me that extra 10. Follow? So that is one small glitch in the system when you have multiple teams working in the same region. So we talked about how we might collaborate rather than compete locally. Cool, thank y'all so much.